heading over to the northern fells of the Lake District, and I'm going to walk over Mungrisdale Common. Now before you turn off, the reason I'm going to do this is because I often get asked why Wainwright actually included it in his list of 214 fells. Well, hopefully in this film I'll give you the explanation and maybe enlighten you as to some of the better merits of this, let's say, uninteresting fell. So keep watching.
The area for this walk is based on the north side of Blencathra, not far from Keswick. There's a parking area just past the Blencathra Field Studies Centre above Throlkill. To begin the walk, we take the good track that heads north through the Glenderaterra Valley, over Roughten Gill, head northeast up alongside Sinen Gill before contouring round to the Cloven Stone and reaching the summit of Mungrisdale Common. From there it's back over Sinen Gill to Roughten Gill before heading southwest to pick up the track again, which will take us back to the car. As we begin the walk, it doesn't look very promising weather-wise. To the south there's heavy rain passing through the valley. To the north, Lonscale Fell is shrouded in cloud. But it's a good route. It's a very good track that will take us right up through the valley. There's been a lot of rain recently, and even this unnamed gill has got a decent waterfall in it, so it's worth stopping to take a few photographs. Next we reach Roughten Gill. It's a more substantial stream, and it's easily identified as because there's a good clapper bridge goes over the water, made up of big stone slabs. We continue on past the gill for about another 100 yards before branching off right uphill. No sign of brightness down to the south just yet. And soon we reach this tumble-down sheepfold. All the stones are now covered in lichen and moss. There are plenty of sheepfolds in the area, some in better condition than this one, as we'll see in a bit. And we take the indistinct path that now heads uphill alongside Sinen Gill.
Now, coming out here today looking for the features of Mungrisdale Common has reminded me of my days when I came out looking for all those hard to find places for the Wainwrights in colour. And this waterfall was one of them. And it's proven to be almost the same sort of challenge today, even though I've been here before. Because the waterfall that we're just about to go and visit is really hidden down in the gorge. And from the southern side, you can't see it because of the bracken. And in fact, if I turn round, I'm only about 30 metres away from it now, you can just about see it there. You can see the top of it. And that's what made, let's say, the Wainwrights in colour so difficult, because many of the places that Wainwright drew in his pictorial guides weren't on normal routes, so I had to go and follow his footsteps and go off the beaten track to find these obscure references. I know some people go out and take similar pictures when they're close to them or on summits and things like that. But really, getting the 1508 references was, let's say, the ultimate challenge. But we'll go down and have a look at this one, take a few photos, and then we'll head up away on the top to the summit. And then when you get round the corner, that's not bad, is it? In fact, I'd forgotten how nice it was. As you can see, it's quite a drop, you know, 10 or 12 feet. And then in front of it is a lovely deep pool. If you ever fancy going skinny dipping somewhere, this is probably the place, because no one is going to come and catch you. But I won't bother today, I'll save you that. So I wonder how many people have done Mungrisdale Common and say, oh, it's boring, there's nothing to it, it's just a flat summit. But they don't know about this. Having found that waterfall, what we're going to do is carry on up alongside Sinen and Gill. And when we're near the top of the Beck itself, we're going to cut across to the left towards the summit. But on the way there, we'll visit the Cloven Stone. It's quite a distinctive boulder that's got splits in it. We'll go and find that first.
Alongside the Gill is this rather distinct sheepfold, unusual in design and still in very good order.
This is the Cloven Stone of Mungrisdale Common. It's quite remarkable because all of the upland here is basically just grass, and then all of a sudden there's a couple of boulders which stand proud, but this one's the biggest and it's a recognised landmark. The name Cloven comes from the name for like a hoof where it's been split in two, like a sheep's hoof or a deer's hoof. And here you can have a close look and you'll see that the rock has got a clean split right down the middle. Wainwright features this in the chapter on Mungrisdale Common. And there you can see the split. Just like someone's gone through it with a knife. Conveniently, it also makes a very nice seat. Right, that's a quick sketch done. So now we're going to go over to the Stone Man before we reach the summit. I've already seen it, it's over to our left here, and it should only take about 10-15 minutes to walk there, if that. We'll walk across there and have a look at this Stone Man, which is actually a tall cairn.
Now, it's not very often that Wainwright made a mistake when he was writing the pictorial guides. But he did in regard to this Stone Man, and where he placed it on his map on Mungrisdale Common 3. There he placed it west-northwest of the summit, whereas in fact it's west-southwest of the summit, a difference of about 200 to 250 yards. I suppose it's only really important if you're using it as an aid to navigation in poor weather.
There's something quite mystical about these stone men, especially on a day like today when the mist is coming and going and there's a cool breeze. I think it's the history and the fact that no one really knows who built them or when they were built. But they're certainly a nice feature of the fell. Anyway, from here we just continue up this fairly distinct path, heading uphill, and soon we'll be at the summit. Well, we'll be at the summit cairn. Saying that Mungrisdale Common's actually got a summit is a bit of a exaggeration, but we'll soon be at the top.
And this, my friends, is the top of Mungrisdale Common, a large area of flatness, with a stone cairn which is usually surrounded by a moat. There is nothing else.
So let me give you a brief explanation about the three summits of Mungrisdale Common. That's right, three. The first one is this one. This is the recognised summit of Mungrisdale Common. Some time ago, someone came up here, brought a stone and decided that this is what they thought was the highest point of Mungrisdale Common. And over the years, a few more stones have come along and the cairn's been built up, and this is the focal point for people getting to the top of Mungrisdale Common. From here, there's actually 9 footpaths which radiate out in all directions from this point. So when people have been walking the fells and they want to do Mungrisdale Common, they touch this stone and say, right, we've done Mungrisdale Common, the summit. Fair enough. To add confusion to the matter, on the Ordnance Survey map there's a spot height of 633 metres. Now that happens to be about 120 metres east-southeast of this point. As you go from here, there's 2 tarns. If you walk directly between those 2 tarns for about 100 metres, you'll come to that spot height. But there is nothing there. There's no stone, there's no marker, nothing. And in fact, everywhere around here is of a similar height, so the difference in height will be hardly any. Then there's the third summit, and that is the spot height of 2,068 feet. That's the height that Wainwright gave Mungrisdale Common. Now, since his day it's been resurveyed, and the 633 metres which I just told you about actually equates to 2,077 feet, 9 feet higher than the spot height on AW's maps at the time. Remember, he didn't have the advantage of GPS or any fancy gadgets. But on his map, the spot height of 2,068 feet was actually not here, but some distance to the north, about 40 or 50 metres. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take one of the stones off this cairn. I'm going to place it where the actual summit point that Wainwright marks in the pictorial guide is. So that would be, if you were being really pedantic and wanted to say that you'd done Wainwright's summit of Mungrisdale Common, you'll have to go and find this stone. So I'll go and do that, and then I'll show you where it is. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this white rock off the cairn, a small white rock, and in the distance, just on the horizon, 60 metres away, is my rucksack, and that is the point that marks Wainwright's true summit. Now, this is just being nerdy, isn't it? I mean, most people will come here and be happy that they've got to the top of Mungrisdale Common, but I do this purely for interest and just for my own sake, to go and find out these places and this interesting fact and features about Wainwright's work. So I'll go and place that stone over there. Maybe no one ever is going to go there and have a look at it or stand there, but purely for my own sake, that's where I'm going to go. As you can see, there are paths to the left and to the right of it, but my rucksack's bang in the middle. So maybe no one is ever going to find this stone again. But I know it's there. And that's it. That's the exact point on this map where Wainwright marks the cross at 2,068 feet. Now, I'll tell you how I've done it. I looked at Wainwright's map and I know that he used the 1-inch and the 6-inch Ordnance Survey maps of the time. And what I've done is I've overlaid those maps over satellite views. So on the satellite view I can see that the recognised cairn behind us is way back there, and then I can see the spot height of 2068 on the old maps, and that's the map that Wainwright referred to and marked on his map, and that point is therefore here. So I've taken a grid reference and I found this exact grid reference using a 10-figure grid. I told you it was a bit nerdy. Anyway, there it is. Now we've done that, we're going to go almost back the way we came. We're going to go to find the second stone man, a couple of waterfalls in Roughten, Gill, and then head back to the car. It's not much of a day for hanging around. It's misty, it's quite warm, but it's misty, and there's not much else to see. So let's go and do that. Of course, I should add that if you go and stand at that white stone and look around, you'll think, well, there's other places which are higher, and that may be true, but when you get to places like this, there is a lot of optical illusion in places which are higher or lower than you are. But it doesn't matter, because that was the original Ordnance Survey at 2,068 feet, and since then they've re-measured the place and found a spot which is at 2,077 feet, which, as I said earlier, is a way over to the east. Well, not a way over, but 100 yards to the east. So we're not actually looking for the highest point here. We're looking for the point that Wainwright marked as the highest point. In other words, Wainwright's summit. And that's that little white stone. We're going to go and have a look at the two tarns, which are just over here. Take a photograph of those. And then head back. As you can see, there's no one else around. So me toing and froing. There was no one around to question if had lost my mind, which I probably have. But anyway, job done. Well, we've had a look round the summit of Mungrisdale Common, done what I wanted to do. Now we're going to head off back towards Roughten Gill and find the other stone man and walk down the Gill, past the waterfalls, and then head back to the car. There's not much to see, and I've seen no one else. But that's Mungrisdale Common for you. Off we go. Now we're heading away from the summit in a southwesterly direction, and we're heading towards the top of Sinen Gill. We're going to get onto the ridge between Sinen Gill and Roughten Gill to find the stone man, and then drop down to Roughten Gill. But the path is completely non-existent here. It's sort of off-piste walking over, well, it's not rough terrain, it's just typical moorland terrain, and as long as you keep an eye on your navigation, then you'll end up in the right place, and that's what we're doing.
Once we crossed over the narrow waters of Sinen Gill, we came across another fallen down sheepfold. From here, we headed west towards the other stone man along the top of the ridge. This stone man is now sadly in a state of collapse. But going by the stonework, it must have been substantial at one time, and it certainly had a wonderful view, especially to the south.
Typical of the Lakeland weather that all day we've been in and out of low cloud, and just as I'm heading down into Roughten Gill now, you can look back towards Mungrisdale Common and it's beautifully clear, sunshine on it. But that's how it is. That's the Lake District weather for you. You've got to come prepared for anything, and if you get a nice late afternoon like this, it's a bonus. Well, as I say, I'm going to head down towards Roughten Gill now and have a look at the waterfalls. They are on the map of Mungrisdale Common, but they're also on the map on the Blencathra page 7, I think it is. And the two waterfalls are actually illustrated in the Blencathra chapter. But as it's at the back of Blencathra, not many people come here anyway, so you may as well add it on to a visit to Mungrisdale Common, and it makes more of the trip to this fell. And that's what we're going to do. Certainly no hurry to go home now that the cloud has lifted. Make the most of the day. As you can see, we've crossed over now onto the southern bank of Roughten Gill. In fact, we're on the slopes of Blencathra. Ahead of us is Lonscale Fell and Skidder, which is still in cloud. We'll follow this very faint track around the top of the enclosure fence and then down towards the track in the Glenderaterra Valley.
Roughten Gill is a really nice ravine, and it's got some wonderful waterfalls. About 10 years ago it was fenced off, and within the enclosure they planted some trees. Sadly, it looks as if none of these trees have taken, or very few, and all that's left are the plastic tree protectors which are now littering the landscape. Real shame.
And here we are back at the main track through the valley. The Clapper Bridge, where we stopped earlier, is just along there. And then along this way, you can see the track that we'll take now back to the field centre and the car. Very straightforward, this bit. Now, you remember at the introduction I did say that I would give an explanation about Wainwright and why he included Mungrisdale Common in the list of 214 and in the pictorial guides. Well, I think the best thing to do is, while I walk back to the car, I'll fit in a bit of film and I'll explain it back in my studio. How's that? I think that'd be the best way, because you can see the maps and everything then. So I'll do that, and while I walk back to the car, here's why Wainwright included Mungrisdale Common in the pictorial guides.
When I was putting together my book, The Wainwrights in Colour, I did a lot of research, and I've even included a small section on the Mungrisdale chapter and to why it's included in the 214 Wainwright Fells. Now, one of the reasons was that when Wainwright was putting his original list together of fells for inclusion in the pictorial guides, when it came to the area that we now know as the Northern Fells, he only had 13 fells listed. Obviously, this wouldn't have been enough to fill up the pictorial guide. So he had to bring in some more fells to make the number up to what we have now as 24. Well, one of the easiest ways of doing that, even though Mungrisdale Common wasn't included in the first list, was to bring in these fells, and that included Mungrisdale Common. So that's one of the reasons that we've got it. It's a book filler. Another reason, if you look at the Ordnance Survey map of the time of Blencathra, if Wainwright had included the whole area, it would have increased the size of his chapter from 36 pages, the biggest in the pictorial guides, up to well over 40. But by dividing that area of Blencathra and Mungrisdale Common, he was able to get 2 chapters out of 1. It also meant that Blencathra is still its impressive content for the pictorial guide, whereas Mungrisdale Common, which he calls a dreary appendage to the north of Blencathra, has its own chapter. Now, we all agree Mungrisdale Common hasn't got a lot of merit going for it, but he was able to take that lesser fell and make it into its own. There's no denying it though. Mungrisdale Common features in the pictorial guide, and it is one of the 214, and it's never going to be amended. People aren't going to come along and take it out and call it the Wainwright 213. So we're stuck with it.
Well, that's my theory about Mungrisdale Common. Now, I may not be 100% correct, but I think with all my experience of doing the research for the Wainwrights in Colour, I've got to know how Wainwright's mind worked, if you like, when he was putting together the pictorial guides, and especially with this new project I'm working on, the Lakeland 365. So feel free to leave a comment in the box below, ready for discussion. I'm more than happy to hear anybody else's theories. As for the route that I did today, it's straightforward and simple. You don't have to go and visit these places. You can go straight up to Mungrisdale Common, tick it off and head somewhere else like Blencathra, or just head back along here. But we're only a couple of 100 yards from the car, and even if you don't do the route that I've done, or even if you don't fancy doing Mungrisdale Common at all, then I would say that it's worth coming up to the field centre, parking up one day and just walking the couple of 100 yards, quite easy along the track here, and taking in this view. Because I'm going to turn the camera now and show you the view that I see in front of me. That's not bad, is it? I think I've just counted over 30 Wainwright fells in this view. There's probably more because there's some in cloud away in the distance. But yeah, well worth the effort for the short walk up from the car park. And that's where we're heading now, back to the car. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this film, and once again, if you have, do click the like button, and even better, subscribe. Because even though I haven't posted as many films recently, there will be more coming up shortly, because I'm now back into the fell walking and doing some work for this new project, the Lakeland 365. So yeah, subscribe to my channel. But in the meantime, thanks for watching. I think I'm off for a pint.